Happy Wednesday night. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you guys, as always, for being with us. And business out of the way, please make sure to like this video as it helps people to find us, and subscribe to WDWNT TV for more great content. Tonight, we are here with, I hope I don't steal your line, Glorious Purpose. How are you, Desi?
You did steal my line.
It's the best line. It's the best line. It's the best line. We're here to talk about Loki season 2. So if you were looking for something spoiler free, I feel like we're gonna have a lot of spoilers in this. So just be prepared for that. Hopefully you guys have already seen it. It was an easy watch. It was like 6 episodes, so it'll be pretty good. But you know, Desi, this is like an anniversary for you because I feel like this was your first Deep in the Plus. Was Loki season 1, right? Is that why you wanted to come back for another round?
I wanted to come back because I genuinely was excited to talk about the show, but also I was genuinely excited to talk about the first one, which is why I kept pestering you on Slack, even though you had never met me before. And I was like, I want to be on this Deep in the Plus episode. So thank you for letting me on then. Thanks for bringing me back now.
Well, I can't remember. Were you on Park Center first? Because you were on Pressing Issues. Were you on Park Center first or Deep in the Plus? I feel like Park Center, no?
No, I was on, because that was before they had merged.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, well, I mean, and it's been awesome. Like, you're one of the top 3 people who have, I mean, it was you and Patrick and me are like the biggest ones who have been on this show. So thank you for being a part of it. I appreciate it. Obviously, when Loki season 2 was coming out, you're like, I got to be a part of this. Marvel Cinematic Universe has been a little rocky recently. A lot of people are panning it left and right, saying it does not have glorious purpose, that it does not have direction. Do you feel like that's accurate, or are you able to find gems?
Are we talking about the MCU in general?
Yes.
Because if we're talking about the MCU in general, then yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't go see the Marvels. I saw Secret Invasion, and I don't want to say I hated every moment because there were good moments. It hasn't been great lately. I feel like when Disney Plus started and they hit the ground running with WandaVision and Loki, I was like, let's go. Disney Plus has amazing content. I love it. And it's just been a slow downhill trickle since.
Well, I know. So, the reason I bring that up is I think a lot of people were disappointed in Ant-Man. The original Loki season 1 seemed like it was the opening to the next chapter. We had the entire Infinity Wars leading up to the Infinity Wars and Endgame, all of the gemstone searching and all that took place, and they were really building to something in that. And then when they hit Endgame, it was like, okay, great, now what? And then they start to rebuild, and we missed a lot of those key players like Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. And then we get, as you said, WandaVision, which blew me away, was great. It was not expected at all. And then Falcon the Winter Soldier, which I thought was good. A lot of people didn't love it. Loki season 1. But Loki season 1 set up what was supposed to be the Kang Dynasty, and then Jonathan Majors got himself into a little bit of trouble. He's still on board. He was still a big part of season 2 of Loki, but it was not, I mean, that was supposed to be, season 1 was his introduction. He was going to go into Ant-Man. Quantumania. Did you see Quantumania?
I did see Quantumania, yep.
What are your thoughts on that one? Because we never reviewed that. What were your thoughts on that one?
It's not as bad as the internet will have you believe, but it's certainly not the best MCU movie I've ever seen. I mean, I'm going to love anything that has Paul Rudd in it. And I actually really like Jonathan Majors as an actor. I don't know about his personal life, I don't know about all that. But
right.
I don't think it was as bad as people say.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I like Paul Rudd. I like the Ant-Man movies. The first one was awesome. The second one was good. The third one was kind of all over the place. And also you kind of want to...
It was the weakest one.
You want to smack Cassie around. I
still had some enjoyment.
You want to smack Cassie around for bringing them into that world. Like, she was the catalyst, just like Star-Lord in Infinity War. It's like, if you hadn't done that, dude, come on, we were so close. So, I saw Loki as the season 1 as the jumping off point for, for the new phase of the MCU. It was felt a little weird and stagnant after Endgame, and I thought we were gonna get rolling up to this Kang Dynasty thing, and then Ant-Man kind of missed, and like we said, a lot of controversy and stuff like that. The first season only had 6 episodes in it, and I thought it was probably COVID related that it only had 6 episodes in it. And then when season 2 comes along, which is what we're talking about tonight, I mean, I think it's all connected because it's the MCU, obviously. This one only had 6 episodes too, and I was like, oh man, I was kind of hoping for something more. The other thing that I noticed about this is it felt like Loki season 1 opened up the world, opened up the multiverse, and then that we were going to live the multiverse, and that Loki season 2 would be along the lines of the multiverse. But it feels like it's all self-contained, and this whole story seems like it takes place and doesn't necessarily need to be part of the MCU. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could see that.
There was a bit in Big Bang Theory where Sheldon makes his girlfriend Amy watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's his favorite movie, and at the end she says, "Well, it's great except for the big plot hole." And he's like, "What plot hole?" And she goes, "The fact that Indy made no difference in that. That everything would have unfolded as it did if Indy had been there or he hadn't." And then Sheldon's like shocked. So again, with this one, we know that Sylvie kind of like screwed the pooch here by killing he who remains at the end of the first one, which then opened up the multiverse. And then in this one again, I don't know. I feel like it was really well done. And so I'm not panning this from the beginning or anything, but it felt like I thought we were going to see Loki and the TVA kind of exist along the way in other MCU properties. Do you think that was because they kind of lost their way with COVID and the writer's strike and all that? Or do you think it was never intended? Do you think this is what they intended from the beginning?
I do think this is what they intended from the beginning. Based on what I've read, it was always meant to be a 2 chapter thing. Like it was one big story told with 2 different chapters. They've never even thought about or considered a third season. They wanted the first 2 seasons to tell one cohesive story. So I really don't see how they could have integrated with the other movies. I'm glad that they didn't, only because Marvel hasn't done a lot of great things lately. So I'm glad that Loki was its own thing.
How dare you? Honestly, I'm going to say something very unpopular. I kind of like the Marvels. I really
I
liked.
haven't seen it, so I
I,
can't
I
I can't speak to it.
I don't know. It's kind of like Jollywood. People are not going to go because the reviews have been bad. But I do look at this as like I liked the Marvels, but again, where is it taking me? Because we knew from the beginning with, once we had Tony Stark walk into that bar and talk to General Ross and say I'm putting together a team, we knew there was something happening and it was building the entire time. This one, I don't know where we're going in the MCU really, and so I think nothing said that to me more than Secret Invasion. That they don't even know what they're doing. That one was such a disappointment in a good storyline from the comics that they just kind of let go. But again, I know we're not here specifically. We're here specifically to talk about Loki, but I think again it's all very connected. So with Loki season 2, we get some new characters too. And honestly, it's a little weird because the first season is all a mystery. You know, what's at the end of time? What's happening? Who's running the TVA and all this other stuff? This one, there's not so much a mystery as it's kind of a chase to like
Still,
to get. Do you think there's a
I
mystery?
feel like it's still a bit of a thriller because you don't necessarily know what Loki's motives are right at first and where he's going with everything. So
Yeah. Okay. OB, what do we think?
love him, love everything about him. He is a gem. Um, and that that is one thing that I will say about Loki season 2 is that when they introduced new characters, I loved Obi. I even loved Brad as an addition. I loved um, Victor Timely. Whereas I think a lot of times when shows have a second season, they start introducing new characters. I'm like, ugh, I don't like these new characters at all. I just want to continue building on the existing characters. But this one, I actually really liked the characters that they brought in.
How about Brad? That whole thing was very strange. The fact that they take a character who seems like such a minor character and they make him a big deal because he goes into the time the prime timeline and
Sacred
becomes
timeline.
the sacred timeline, becomes an actor. Like, how random is that? And then he loves his life and he doesn't want to he doesn't want to leave. So, there's a lot of mystery in this entire series, talking about season 1 as well, where was it the right thing or the wrong thing to do for Sylvie to kill he who remains, and is it the right thing to do to keep the TVA together or break it apart? And so we're going on that journey with Loki. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do, but he's driven to do something, and so he thinks he's doing the right thing the whole time, but so does Miss Minutes. She thinks she's doing the right thing. Miss Minutes, whew, I don't like Miss
She is the
Minutes.
scariest villain in all of the MCU. She creeps me out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you on that one. I think that it's one of those things. I'm sorry. There you go. It's one of those things where she's definitely like, you don't know her motives, and she seems all like, "Hey, y'all," and she's so sweet, and yet she's completely evil. Like when Victor pushes what's her name? The woman off
Ravonna
the boat.
Renslayer.
Renslayer. I wanted to say Rinsler, which is Tron, which is not this, but Renslayer off of the boat. And then Miss Minutes is like, well, she had to go. I mean, it's just like, she's just
and
evil.
and when she's like, "Oh, I could be your girl," and she like morphs into the mannequin face. Oh my god, so creepy. I
Yeah.
don't blame Victor Timely for turning her off.
Yeah, I don't know. It is super creepy. It is super creepy. Um, Tom Hiddleston is ending his reign here as Loki. Are you okay with that? 14 years of Loki.
I mean, theoretically, he's not supposed to be aging, right? And um,
Tom Hiddleston can't help it.
he, he you know, unless he goes out and gets Botox and facelifts and whatnot, he's not going to look like he did when he was 28 years old. I mean, I wish I still looked like I did when I was 28 years old. So, yeah, it makes sense. And I really like this arc because, you know, his arc from, you never knew if he was a villain or a good guy. He kept going back and forth. Um, and he wanted to have a throne and glorious purpose, but like Sif said, you're alone and you always will be. So it did kind of wind up with both.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good
Uh,
arc for him.
So Sylvie showing up, we knew from set pictures and leaks and all this stuff that she was tied in with McDonald's. Her showing up at a 1980s
Yep,
80s
80s.
McDonald's was kind of surreal.
And that
I know.
hair.
I mean, it they did such a good job with that scene. Obviously, I was around in the '80s, and I was having these little flashbacks to, oh my god, I remember all of this stuff. And so it was really interesting to see that happen. So I love that they decided to take her back there. Even like the uniforms, they're just hideous. And then they took us back to that time. I love that they've got her as she's like, I don't want to be a part of any of this anymore. And I assume it's just because she feels this immense responsibility for having killed He Who Remains, and is just looking to get out and just forget all about it and live just a very normal life, which of course Loki is just beside himself to bring her back in and figure out how she can how she can help and fix things. When he's flipping back and forth between time, and it's like millions of years, I think that that is the coolest little idea that he can go back and forth in time, and it reminds me of a movie. Do you remember the movie Groundhog Day?
Yep.
That's what this reminds me of, because
So
like in
instead
Groundhog
of
Day,
learning the piano, he learns, astrophysics.
why is it the piano was the one I was thinking of too? Is that the only thing that he did? I mean, he learned manners and all kinds of other things, but yeah, it was
Ice
definitely the
sculpting.
piano. Yeah, ice sculpting. Um, but it is the kind of one of these things where it shows that Loki is a different guy. That he has again. I want to keep going back to the word purpose, but the fact that he is so driven as to relive these moments over and over again and go, okay, we didn't make it the last time. What can I do this time to change this and make it different? And there's this scene where he is, and it's very because this is a time shifting thing, it's hard for me to jump into specific times to talk about. So the one thing that I think is interesting and frustrating at the same time was when he jumped back to the time where Sylvie killed He Who Remains, and she keeps saying over and over again, "If you want to stop me, you're going to have to kill me." He is so driven to find a solution that he's spending millions of years doing it. Why wouldn't he just kill her? I mean,
Because
am I
he
off here?
loves her. he, that's like, would you, if,
Oh no 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 no
would you
no
not
no! Don't.
spend a million years avoiding killing your wife if it was like, well,
Why did I
you
know he's
either
coming
have to
back to that?
kill her.
But again, I mean, we're talking about saving humanity, and I guess that is that very difficult question that you ask yourself about that. But he is in a tough spot with this, but he can't convince her not to do it. And I think it's interesting when he goes back and kind of freezes time and talks to her and says, "Hey, this is what I'm going to have to do." And she goes, "I'm not going to give you permission. I'm not going to say it's okay to kill me." But she doesn't say don't do it. But it's one of those that like it feels like she's so driven to do it, he can't talk her out of it. That's just a frustrating moment for him, but it's also in for the audience. It's a frustrating moment for us, don't you think? Like
I
that's
mean,
just
I
repeating it.
I appreciated seeing like how much he loves Sylvie and he wants to do anything he can to save the universe without having to kill her. And I thought it was also a good character growth and development to see him go through that. So it didn't frustrate me personally.
No, okay.
No.
One of the cool things that happened is there's a scene where they're going back in time, or they're rewinding time in between two different episodes, and the opening credits rewind. Did you catch that?
What?
The opening credits rewind. I think it was episode 4, but the opening credits go backwards instead of forwards.
Oh, really? No, I didn't
Yeah.
notice.
I'm gonna have to try to dig it up, but it was like, yeah, I think it was episode 4. Unfortunately, I find it very difficult to play video anymore while I'm talking while we're doing the show. So, but I'm pretty sure that was the one. But they rewind the Marvel credits, so everything kind of goes back into itself. That was neat. And then also at the very end, just the very last episode, when they're doing the Loki letters, the letters start to disappear, and then O is the last one, and then it goes away. And I was
That
like,
I did
okay, so
see. Yeah.
so it's the end. Little things like that that I thought were kind of neat. Tell me about things in that you were excited to see happen. I mean, did things play out the way you wanted them to while this is going on? What did you
Um,
let me back up. What did you want to how did you want this to end when you knew season 2 was coming? How did you want this season to end?
I guess if I had any expectations, my expectation was that Loki was going to find a way to rule the TVA and make his own sacred timeline and just take over for He Who Remains or convince Sylvie we need to do what he asked for the first time, where basically instead of killing him, we just take over the reins and let him retire. And we rule the TVA together. That's what I thought was going to happen, because I thought that when He Who Remains at the end of season one gave them that option of, look, I'm tired. I want you to take this over for me. And I thought that the reason Loki was pausing and thinking about it was because he's like, yeah, I've always wanted a throne. I've always wanted to rule. And, now I've got Sylvie to rule by my side. This will be great. And the reason Sylvie basically killed him was because she had been living her entire life in apocalypses. And I'm sure that was not good on the psyche. So I that was my expectation. But on the other hand, I didn't need that to be the ending. Kind of like Raylo, where it was like, if Raylo didn't happen, I was gonna riot. Um, so I think I liked going into it without having expectations and knowing what was going to happen, and I
Gotcha.
tried to go in as spoiler free as possible without looking at a ton of promo videos and stuff like that ahead of
That's
time.
always the tough part, isn't it? Especially if you're following Disney news, or it's like, oh, hey, like OB just showed up in Avengers Campus, and you're like, I don't know him yet because I haven't seen this, or so you really have to keep up with it, or else you run into problems like that. It looks like, and I've been obsessed with this. It looks like it is. See, it is episode 6. It is in reverse. So when it starts out with the Marvel logo, and then it kind of goes back into all the other stuff, and like the sound is reversed and everything, so we're going back into the Marvel stuff. So
Oh, I
it's
didn't
again
even pick up on that at all.
I
Interesting.
mean, for some reason the little weirdest things stand out to me, and so that stood out to me when I saw it the first time, and I was like, wait a minute, that's kind of awesome.
Oh,
um
if I
because
had
it
one expectation and something I really, really, really wanted to happen, was I
okay.
wanted to see Mobius ride a jet ski, which I feel like I only got half of. I was a
I
little
mean,
disappointed it wasn't on the water.
so I did want to talk about Mobius a little bit. So obviously, we know Owen Wilson from Wedding Crashers, movies like that. We know him from Cars as Lightning McQueen. But in
Hmm.
when he started in this, the very first episodes of season one, I was like, it's just Owen Wilson. It's just Owen Wilson doing Owen Wilson. By the end of this, I bought him as Mobius, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know what changed, but maybe he's just spending a lot of time with this character. But maybe it was the fact that in season one he doesn't want to know about his history and being plucked from the sacred timeline. In season two, he ends up having to go back against his will, sort of, reliving that space in his life. And I kind of feel sorry for him, at that point, that
I don't
he's
think
living kind of a sad life. I mean, he's got kids and he's happy-ish, but there's still drama and tragedy in his life.
I don't think that our Mobius from the TVA remembers any of that. I think that when Loki went back in time and he got the Mobius variant and the Casey variant and the Hunter B-15 variant, like, they all turned into spaghetti. So those aren't the same people that we see at the end of the season. Um, so I think that when he went back at the end with Sylvie, that was his first experience seeing his place on the timeline. So I don't I don't think he knew any of that until that very last scene.
Yeah, but again, he does learn about it, which he never wanted to do in the first place. I love that you said they turned into spaghetti. Is that how you see that? That was an odd choice, wasn't it? It wasn't like they were probably sitting around there going, "Look, it can't be like the snap. They can't all turn into dust. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to turn into spaghetti."
Because have you ever heard about when you go into a black hole, you turn into spaghetti?
I mean, everybody's talking about it, I guess. Um, I don't know. It's just
I
again
thought that
they
was a good like throwaway line at the beginning of the season, and then all of a sudden everything's turning into spaghetti by the end of it.
yeah. Um, Yeah, and again, it didn't occur to me that that was a thing, but then when everybody does turn into it, it is jarring. Um, him jumping back and forth between worlds. I feel like there's a lot of subtext that I was missing. The one where he kind of sees himself and then kills himself, and he's like, "This will make sense later." I mean, that's just him going in through those
He's
loops,
not
trying
killing
to
himself. He's pruning himself, and he knows that he has to prune himself to get to where he is now.
define the
It's
difference
like
between
an
him throwing an
Ouroboros
axe into himself and how that's not killing himself
because
but pruning. How is that different?
because he is that person who got pruned. So he's not killing himself. He is pruning himself so that his essence gets thrown across the multiverse, and Owen Wilson's character Mobius has to, harness him back at the beginning of the season. So it's not killing himself, it's just sending him where he needed to be.
Gotcha. He killed himself.
He didn't die, and he knew he
Um,
wasn't going to die.
when they go back through and he's doing the thing where he keeps like shifting. I love the scene where he goes back to where Mobius is at this like weird like um, dealership where it's kind of like jet skis and motorcycles and whatever else. And as soon as he like shakes it off, there's one of those wacky waving arm flailing inflatable tube man dudes like right in the same shot. I thought that was kind of neat. What do
Yeah,
we
so
think of,
good.
of Victor Timely versus He Who Remains?
Really interesting. That's why I really like Jonathan Majors as an actor, and I'm so sad that there's a chance he could get canceled. I don't know. I hope he doesn't. We saw what happened with Johnny Depp, so I don't want to assume anything. You know, assume innocent until proven guilty. So I'm gonna hold judgment. Um, but he's such a good actor. I really don't want to lose Kang. I don't want to lose, this actor who is so versatile. He can play somebody who's just kind of like shy and stuttering and mumbling, and somebody who's like as grandiose as He Who Remains, and wacky. So I and somebody who's like as scary as he was in Ant-Man. Um, that is such a shame if we lose out on an actor like that. I hope that it's not true. I hope he doesn't get canceled. I hope we can continue on. I hope that the Kane dynasty still happens because I want to see more of his versatility.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. But I agree with you. It's like we don't know, and I don't want to. I don't know. We'll see how it all shakes out, but it would be nice. I don't think you can replace. No one else can be Kang at this point. I don't think. I
Yeah.
know there's
I
there's
mean, you
talk of the
could say,
whole.
"Oh, it's a variant," but I, it it wouldn't be the same.
That didn't seem to work out too well in the Forbidden, or I mean, Fantastic Beasts films. Like the three different people playing Grimwald. Like I feel like that was too much. Like it was supposed to be Johnny Depp. Um, yeah, I think that was too much the
Yeah.
way that that worked out. So I don't know that I get what you're saying is that it could be it could be a very like an alligator variant of Kang that they could do, but it's just a little bit. I don't know. He's just too big a deal, and then we've made too big a deal of that as the image of him, whether he's Victor Timely or whether he's He Who Remains or whether he's from Quantum Mania. We've already seen too much of it that it would be weird. It would be kind of like Sylvie being Loki in the Sacred Timeline. Like
Right.
she's a variant,
Right.
but I'm not sure that she's the one that we're gonna fear, or like a variant of Thanos. That'd be pretty weak. But like they've done it before with minor characters, like Rhodey, um, and so I guess it could be done. There's also talk, I guess, of Doctor Doom being the new baddie in the Marvel universe. Is that a thing you want to see?
I mean, I don't care. One I don't really know Doctor Doom other than his terrible ride at Universal Studios. I don't know.
The
Maybe
Doctor Doom
we'll see.
Fearfall? Are you kidding me? Terrible. No, thank you. That's the best ride ever.
Um, yeah,
L-
I if it's good, yeah, bring it on. But I mean, I'm still all in on King.
okay, okay. What about key lime pie? How do you feel about key lime pie?
I have thoughts on key lime pie.
Tell me.
First off, I love key lime pie. It's delicious. Second off, when we were talking about the key lime pie on Park Center, you told me, because I said, "Oh, I wonder if key lime pie is going to show up in Loki," and you're like, "No, it's not. That's just a cute play on words because it's low key lime pie. Ha ha ha. No, it's not going to show up in the show." You were wrong. I was right. Just needed to be said.
Well, that's why I brought it up because I figured I'd bring it up before you did because this is I don't know the third time that you've brought it up sometime about the key lime pie, so I just wanted to make sure to give you the forum to do it. So here's the key lime pie at Avengers Campus. I don't think it's green enough. So it's at the Pym Test Kitchen. There's the color green it needs to be right there, the key lime pie. But
Maybe
in what?
maybe it just didn't photograph well. I don't know.
So in this
It does look a little bit
universe,
more gelatin in the
yeah,
TVA.
it does. In the TVA, the kind of the place where they keep like showing up to get pie is based on an old, I think it's 50s thing called the automat, where you would go into like it would be like a cafeteria, only instead of there being trays of food and you picking up one as you go along, they were doors, and you would open up the door and take out a key lime pie, and then someone on the other side would put another one in. So very strange concept, but they used to
I
have them in Washington D.C. You
I
what?
thought it was interesting that that the TVA is in kind of like a 1960s esque vibe, and I thought, oh, when they find out where He Who Remains is from, I thought maybe he would be from the 1960s, or there would be some kind of explanation why everything looks like this. But if he's from like, I don't know, the 1830s or wherever he's from, why why was everything built to look like 1960s ish stuff? I don't know. I find that very strange.
I don't know. Here's a picture of an automat, like an actually existing automat. So they would put the pieces inside, and then you could put a buck or whatever into there and get your food out. So yeah, very very strange. They leaned into it so hard. I think it's probably a 50s or 60s kind of a situation, but yeah, it is weird that like that's what he would model the TVA after. But there's a very chicken egg thing about the TVA and how all that works because
Right.
he got the manual, um, from Miss Minutes, who was sent there by him to give it to himself so he would have it so he could learn so he could build the TVA. So it's almost this weird. I don't know. Time travel is
Ouroboros.
crazy. It's the what?
It's an Ouroboros. It's a snake eating its own tail.
Exactly. Man, I'm glad you said it before I did. Um, let's talk about the rest of the characters in here. Speaking of, uh, so this dude, I feel like he bulked up between season 1 and 2.
Maybe it's because he had to look like he was a prisoner escaping from Alcatraz, and we had to it had to be believable that he would be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like I thought, okay, he's definitely been working out in the off season. We talked about Sylvie, we talked about Loki, we talked Mobius, but uh, how about uh, how about your girl here? She went through a lot in this
I
episode.
love her.
We didn't see her as much in the first season. I don't feel like
Yeah,
as we did in this season.
we
Um,
got to see more of her versatility. I I would like to see. I hope King Dynasty happens. I hope that maybe like He Who Remains or somebody rescues her because it looks like she's about to get eaten by Eliath. I hope somebody rescues her from the end of time or wherever she is, and that's why she helps, to help him win the multiversal war. So
Okay.
we'll see. I feel like they have built all this up, and it would be a shame to not have any of it.
Yeah. Hunter B15. Why is she the only one that doesn't get a name?
She got a name like in the on the
In her real
timeline.
world, she was a doctor, but did they say what her name was?
I feel like they did. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I definitely. It's like I feel like it started with a
Dr.
C,
Willis.
like
D- Dr.
Willis.
Willis.
Okay, I
Hmm.
was gonna say Cecilia for some reason.
But I mean, we referred to her during most of it as Hunter B15. But then you've got Casey and Ravonna or Renslayer and Sylvie and Mobius and of course Loki and then OB.
And
Um, and He Who
Brad,
Remains.
he
And Brad.
when he was a hunter, he had a number name. So why do the hunters only get numbers and letters, but everybody else, like, Judge Renslayer, or what roles allow, like, Casey? Why does he get a real name? He seems like he's low on the totem pole.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. We can look at that at season 3. No, I don't think there's going to be a
I don't think
season
there's going to
3.
be a season 3.
So as this is going on, and we've gone back in time and we've seen, like, Victor from the beginning, and we get to see Sylvie and where she went, and then these other variants of Mobius and Dr. Willis and Brad in different time periods. It is kind of cool seeing them jump back and forth from one time period to the other, and must have been an expensive one to make because of all the different sets that they had for this one and the costumes and all that. So I'd love to see it up for some Emmys if that's a possibility. I don't have any
I
pull
want
over
to
that.
know, did they just find a McDonald's that hasn't been updated in a long time, or did they build
Rebuild
it?
it.
I don't know.
I bet it was an existing McDonald's because it looked too good to not be the real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and they've got a lot of them from like the early days, like the ones that like Ray Kroc went into himself, like with the big arches
Mm-hmm.
outside and all that looked like the like Sonic or whatever. So I can't imagine that that's not a thing that they wouldn't have. Um, so now that Loki has saved us and he sits in his great mighty throne holding all of time in his hands, do we ever come back to him, or do we just assume he's there, we never need to see him again?
I mean, again, like I said, Thomas Hiddleston's getting older. Loki is not supposed to age. I mean, how old? He was already supposed to be, what, like 1,000 years old at that point, and He Who Remains stopped aging once he was able to start manipulating time. So Loki should theoretically not get older from this point forward. He should always look like he's 28 years old. I love Tom Hiddleston. I love Loki. He's probably my favorite MCU character at this point. Um, but I feel like they wrapped his story up in a nice little bow, and he had a full arc. He's got his ending with his glorious purpose, where he's also alone. It all makes sense. I don't feel the need to go back. Would I, if they brought him back in, would I love it? Probably, yeah. Um, but I don't need it.
Okay. What's funny to me is that season 1, episode 1 was Glorious Purpose, and season 2, episode 6 is Glorious Purpose. Like,
Yeah.
way to bring it full circle. That was very cool the way that worked out. Um, so are any of these characters going to be seen again?
I hope so. I hope, when, because I still hope the King Dynasty happens. So if
True.
that happens, I hope that, we see the TVA in some form, or even if it's just like a throwaway thing where we see the quote unquote real Mobius on the timeline, um, as a background character. Like, if a battle's going and he's like there with his two kids like, whoa, what's going on, and runs away. Just something like I would find it hard to believe we never see any of these characters again ever. I'm still hoping King Dynasty happens and they have a bigger role to play, but even if that doesn't happen, I'm sure something will happen where there will be Easter eggs of someone there at some point.
Okay. Are you excited about anything coming up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Like we talked about, I mean,
King
obviously you talked
Dynasty.
about, yeah, I was about to say, obviously we talked about King Dynasty, but other than that, we talked about the Marvels, and you haven't been to see the Marvels yet. That's been out a week or two, right? Echo is coming out. Are you excited about Echo?
I mean, I like Vincent D'Onofrio. Adventures in Babysitting is still his best role, but Kingpin is his second best role.
Okay.
Um,
Uh,
I would be more excited for Daredevil, other than She-Hulk kind of made him, I don't know, geeky.
because he did the walk of shame with his on his way away from her apartment. Um,
Yeah,
Ironheart. Are you familiar? Are you excited? I mean, Ironheart was part of the Wakanda Forever, but in other, I don't know. Are we excited about Ironheart?
who
Um,
who is Ironheart? I don't think I even know what that one is.
um, I don't. Riri Williams. So if you they find her in the Wakanda Forever, and she's kind of like made her own designs, and then they bring her into the fray to fight against Namor. But she's supposed to be sort of kind of a young Avenger, and there's seeds of that we see happen coming out of the Marvels. I won't spoil anything there, but that's something that they've gone back and forth between. Like they look like they're constantly setting up the young Avengers,
I
and then at
would
the
like
same
to
time
see
they say they're not. So
I would like to see a way to bring Billy and Tommy back, and I still want to know what the heck happened to White Vision. It's been years. He's just been like, oh man, that's crazy. Fly away. And what did he go to, like, Antarctica, and he's just like contemplating life? And I don't know
yeah,
what's
I don't
going on
know.
there.
Well, speaking of
Seems like a big plot
WandaVision,
hole.
Agatha
Oh,
Darkhold
oh,
Diaries.
I was gonna say I'm excited for Agatha House of Harkness, Agatha Coven of
Darkhold Diaries.
Chaos, Agatha whatever they're going with. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Okay. Daredevil Born Again. You said you were
Yeah.
somewhat interested in that one.
I mean,
Deadpool
I like
3.
Charlie Cox. Oh, did you see for Halloween that Charlie Cox dressed up like Loki and Tom Hiddleston dressed up like Daredevil? That was
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah. Deadpool 3. Ryan Reynolds, the return of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
Okay. I love the original X-Men movies. I love Ryan Reynolds. I've never seen Deadpool. I feel really bad saying that. But
What?
yeah, I
It's
don't
going to be
know.
part of
I
the
know.
MCU, baby. Got to get into it.
Now
Uh,
I'm going to
Brave
have
New
to. I
World.
think I started watching it and it was too gory for me. I'm a Disney girl.
Brave New
Uh,
World. Captain America, Brave New World.
I did not like Falcon
Falcon and
and the
Winter
Winter
Soldier.
Soldier. Um, I maybe it's because of COVID restrictions, because I guess the original storyline had to do with setting off a pandemic, and that hit a little too close to home. So there were a lot of rewrites there. It felt way too predictable and forced, and I did not personally care for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But maybe without the COVID restrictions, and it seems like they've been spending a long time writing it, so hopefully it's good. We'll see.
Okay. And then we've got
But
a lot of
also,
stuff.
the if you're talking about the Young Avengers, the guy who plays I don't know, the grandson. I don't remember what the he that's one of the guys who was involved in the Fantasyland brawl. So
Oh, right.
what's going
Yes.
to happen with him? Will they
I don't
recast
know.
that guy?
I
Yeah,
think
I don't know.
he's recastable. Honestly, I feel like he's recastable.
He's
Uh,
recastable. Kang is not.
yes, exactly. I mean, we're too invested in Jonathan Majors at this point. And again, I mean, the Creed, like him in Creed 3, he looked amazing in that. So Brave New World, Thunderbolts. I think that could be good. No, okay, cool.
Um,
Blade.
that's okay. So Thunderbolts is going to be the one with like the people, the, who was the like
You got Zemo, and then Contessa Valentina Allegra de la
yeah.
Fontaine, Ghost
Oh,
from the Wasp and Ant-Man movie.
the
Bucky is supposed to
sister,
be in it.
the sister
Yes.
from Black Widow. I really like her. She's great.
Uh, yeah, Yelena, and then also
Yes.
Red Guardian David Harbour is supposed to be in that too, and then
Hmm.
also Taskmaster. So, it's basically a Suicide Squad, but in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So all the baddies getting together, all of the misunderstood anti-heroes getting together and putting together a team. So
Yeah.
that should be interesting. But we're at this point talking about 2025. So much could change between now and then. But you know what was funny is coming out of
True.
like D23 Expo 2019, they couldn't stop talking about the new shows that were coming. They were like, and we're doing this, and we're doing that, and we're doing this, and we're doing that, and then there's this, and then there's that. And so there's been so much. Do you think that people are burnt out on the MCU, or do you think that they're just not putting out the quality they used to?
I think that if they had been putting out the quality that they had previously, people would not be burned out on the MCU. I don't think that it's because of the MCU, because, you know, people are just burned out on it. I think it's because there is a reason people have lost interest because they've been putting out subpar products. Like, I loved WandaVision, I love Loki, I love Moon Knight. And then other than that, I've been really underwhelmed with all of the other, like, I thought She Hulk was okay. I thought Ms. Marvel was okay. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't to the level of what we had become accustomed to with WandaVision and Loki. And even Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I would say they put more production value into that than with She Hulk. Um, and I just feel like because they have been putting out a subpar product, that is why people have gotten less enthusiastic about the MCU. If and maybe it's because the characters that they care about aren't around anymore. You don't have Steve Rogers, you don't have Tony Stark. You
Right.
have, you know, I guess we did get a few movies with Falcon, but people, he's not Steve Rogers, so some people might be like, you know, not my Cap. I mean,
Yeah, but
not
I
like,
feel yeah, but I feel like it worked with Guardians. I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy, they took a team that we hardly really
I,
knew, and they put together a group of people that we wanted to see. And I think
yeah,
all three of the Guardians movies were good. That's
yeah,
that's a
true.
rarity. I think that all three of the Guardians movies were good. But also we had COVID,
But it's
and
its own
also
thing.
the Guardians. Yeah, it is.
Guardian Guardians was its own thing. It wasn't like a let's
So
try to
was in
string together a lot of B characters and make a new team out of them.
so was Eternals. Just saying. I mean, like that didn't seem
I
to
haven't
catch
seen
on.
Eternals.
What?
I know,
Eternals was overload. Yeah.
another one of those I heard bad things and never got around to seeing it.
You should go see the Marvels. That's what I'm gonna say. Like whether you go and hate it or not, I think you should see the Marvels. So here's the schedule of what's out there right now. Is November 10th the Marvels came out. We don't see another Marvel property in the theaters until Deadpool in May of 2024, then Captain America in July, and Thunderbolts in December. And then 2025, we might as well not even start counting those chickens because who knows what'll happen by then. But as I was saying, we had COVID, and then we had the writer strike, and then we had the actor strike. So, there's a lot that's been kind of stretching all this out for a while, but I still don't think that made it okay for Secret Invasion to be what it was. Just putting that out there.
No, by the time Secret Invasion came out, they didn't have the COVID excuse anymore.
Yeah, and again, I mean, anybody who watches the show on a regular basis, and we appreciate you guys watching. And if you haven't already, please give us a like. I like to like things. I mean, I do, and I like so much that Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars put out. But I gotta call it on Secret Invasion. It just wasn't good, wasn't necessary. It didn't further the story along. It didn't do justice to Nick Fury or the Skrull. It just was, and then we had talked about reviewing it, and I was like, do we like? I mean, who wants to really see that? So I was
Nobody.
very disappointed in Secret Invasion, and it was one of those kind of like you're talking about with the Marvels. I just heard bad things, and so I didn't get into it. And then I finally just like almost had to force myself to sit down and watch it, and I was just like, nah. Loki, completely different. Loki season 2, I was like, give me that next one. And as a matter of fact, I kind of held off like the first couple of episodes, and I remember Neko was like saying, "Oh, did you see it?" And I was like, "No, I haven't seen it yet." But I held off the first couple episodes, watched them, and then like watched 3 to the end together, and I didn't regret it because I feel like that's kind of how you need to watch that one.
No, I needed to watch it immediately upon it coming out. So if I was not on News Tonight and it came out on a Thursday, I was watching it that Thursday. I mean, if I was on News Tonight, then obviously I would. I wasn't going to watch it while I was there, but I would watch it that next Friday.
You know what?
I could not hold off
you if
a
you
whole
pick
week.
that. So you prefer, like, is it Loki, or do you prefer, because Patrick and I talked about this when we reviewed Disney Plus, because Disney Plus is 4 years old now. We did a show that was talking about like Disney Plus in general, and we talked about, what do you prefer? Do you prefer when they drop it all at once, or do you prefer when they drop it one episode at a time? I prefer when they drop it one episode at a time.
I love the one episode at a time. Of course, when things come out and they dropped all at the same time, I binge it because I can't help myself.
Right.
But I genuinely love the 1 week at a time. I love sitting there and thinking about what's going to happen, talking about it with my friends. What do you think's going to happen? Coming up with ideas and theories in my head of what could possibly happen next. And when you just binge it all, the mystery is gone, and it's not as enjoyable for me personally. I want to be able, like, that is part of my enjoyment of watching shows. It's not just watching it and enjoying it in the moment. It's watching it, enjoying it in the moment, and then thinking about it, coming up with theories and talking about it with my friends and getting on online forums and seeing what everybody else thinks and getting other people's theories and then building off of each other. Like, that to me, and like building a community out of something where you guys can discuss things together, that to me is way more exciting and way more fun than just sitting there for 6 hours straight and watching a show.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, when you binge it, you're like, it's over, and then you look back and go, did I watch that? I don't remember, because I like you have it all at once, and you can't, like you said, have those conversations. One other thing I really like about Loki, it was the first time I remember them doing this, is when Loki season 1 came out. It was around the time of Avengers Campus, and they brought out the characters like the day of into Avengers Campus. So this time you have the TVA Loki, and you have OB making appearances in Avengers Campus right after. Now, that said, they did the old Nick Fury, giving espionage lessons. That one was, but this was kind of cool to see them doing this. But obviously, because it's was so early in this, and probably people didn't know who Ovi was, he had to be carrying his little TVA guide, so people could see who he was. And you know what? Honestly, I feel like the OB looks more.
He looks more like
accurate.
OB than Loki does. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. He looks more like OB than Loki looks like Loki. But this was what I remember when they did it in season one. When episode one came out, they had him in his like criminal costume from the TVA. They
Mm-hmm.
did President Loki. When Moon Knight came out, they had Moon
So
Knight,
good.
and then they had Mister Knight. Like I love this tie-in, and I wish we could see these
Why didn't we
characters
get
more
an
often.
alligator Loki at Animal Kingdom?
You know why?
There are some horns. Oh, because we can't have Marvel on this side. I get it. I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah. You can't call it
That's the
Marvel.
whole reason.
That's the entire reason why we didn't have somebody staple some horns on top of a wild animal. I don't know, Desi. Whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, it makes me happy. I love that they do this, and I love that they also do the Star Wars characters afterwards and those tie-ins for Disney Plus. But I wish they would do more. And then these are also very temporary, and that's the thing that bothers me because I live on the East Coast. I can't run on down to Disneyland and see these things when they happen. So we just have to admire them from afar. But it is neat when they are able to do it. I wish they'd bring these characters out more. But I remember Loki being the first place. Final thing I want to talk about on this one is I feel like in this season 2, they let Loki be Loki more than we've seen Loki be Loki, if that makes sense.
What do you
When
mean?
they go back to Earth to find Brad, and they chase him down, and he's using all of
Oh
his
yeah.
powers and the horns and the shadow and all of that stuff. He's using those powers more than we've seen him use them, and maybe part of that is he's locked out of using magic at the TVA. But because of that, and because of the stuff that he does when they're chasing Victor, like they really let him use those powers again, and it's almost like we really haven't seen him use them as much in season 1 as we did in
Right,
season 2, I
because
feel like.
he was stifled from using them in season one. So I thought that was a good, little plot device to be like, oh, well, do you think that, if we do this, then people will be able to use magic in the TVA? Yes, do it.
But I mean, even when he's like, again on the away missions, I'm gonna call them. He's
Mm-hmm.
using them, and I loved that. Like that's the cool thing to me when he uses his powers. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I'm just like a superhero nerd. Like obviously, I love the drama of this more than some of the early superhero stuff that was out there, like the Batman TV show with Adam West or some of the early Superman stuff. But I love it when they use their powers, and a lot of times they kind of hold off on the powers. Either I don't know if it's because the effects are too expensive, or because they're trying to lean more into the story and the humanity of the characters. But man, give me some powers. Like I love when Loki, makes duplicates and scares the heck out of these guys, and I don't and
Yeah.
throws them, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I loved seeing Loki be Loki.
Yeah, because even when he used his powers in season one, it wasn't necessarily the way that you would expect Loki to use powers to, scare somebody or be, do something evil. It was like, disguising himself to look like an employee for the train so he could sneak himself and Sylvie on board, or, make himself a blanket to warm up. Um, you know, it wasn't any of the stuff like what he was doing with Brad.
Yeah. And then when we finally see him take his place on the throne with his glorious purpose, he's kind of come to sort of, it's not the it's not the fancy version of the king that I think we've always seen that he could be. It's
Mm-hmm.
really more of a common a common god. I mean, he's wearing the robes, and the horns
Yeah.
aren't shiny, and it's not about the pomp and circumstance at this point. It's about him taking his place and being there. So, I'm
Actually,
really
looking at this photo, I didn't notice
yes,
this during the show that the black kind of onyx. I mean, I noticed that it was black, but it looks like it's got the gold cracks in it, like He Who Remains Castle.
yeah. Now, and again,
Interesting.
I mean, it kind of shows the character development. This has been a journey for him, 14 years in the making, to him sitting on his throne of, again, a very anti-hero, saving all of the universes by, doing what he's doing and replacing He Who Remains at the end of time. So, I think it was very well done. I would like to see him pop in somewhere else, but I get what you're saying. He's getting up there. Maybe the force of holding together the multiverse will have aged him appropriately, and he can show up at a later date. But I know it was my wife's favorite. Was Loki and Thor. I think Thor for another reason, actually. I'm just going to put that out there. But Loki and Thor, she loves Tom Hiddleston. I think he did an amazing job. But it's so funny to look back and think they spent 14 years. He spent 14 years as Loki. 14 years. Yeah. How old are your kids?
3.
I mean, that's according to Disney or according to you? But again,
2 and 3 according to Disney.
But I mean, what were you doing 14 years ago? Going to the theater to see Thor.
Yeah, I guess so. That's exactly what I was doing.
All right. So, again, thank you for doing this, Desi. I appreciate it. There's a lot to talk about with the MCU, and as Patrick and I have done when we talk about the Groot shorts, we talk about it's all connected and it kind of all leads into one another. But tonight, before we give final thoughts, anything else that you want to talk about with Loki, or are we good to give final thoughts?
I wish that alligator Loki could have made an appearance somewhere in this show. Just even like scurrying around in the background when you see Ravonna, that would have been great.
In season 2, because he was in season 1, but you're saying you wish he could have been in season 2. Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Well, a big shout out to our WIGS members, the WDWNT Interglobe Society. We love our WIGS. Thank you guys so much for being members. If you want to find out more about that, go to patreon.com/WDWNT to find out more. We appreciate you guys being with us every week. Thank you guys. Next week, let's take a look really quick before we go here. So last week we had The Lightning Thief. This week we've got Loki season 2. Next week it's going to be Robin Hood, the animated series, or the animated movie. We're going to talk about that with Stephanie. And then Patrick's going to be around to talk about Duck the Halls, which was a Mickey Mouse cartoon. I know, hashtag not Desi's Mickey. And then Muppets Christmas Letters to Santa, and finish the year off with The Simpsons. We've never done a Simpsons. And so we're going to do the original Simpsons Christmas special, the one that started it all after Tracy Ullman's show. This was the one, Santa's Little Helper. It should be a lot of fun. So please join us for Deep in the Plus. Also join us for Park Center. This week we will be... we're going to be at a different time. We're going to be 3 to 5 because of the marathon for Toys for Tots. So hopefully you guys will join us, donate to Toys for Tots, but at least join us for Park Center on Sunday, and then back here for Deep in the Plus the next Wednesday. Desi, thanks for doing this, but now is the time that I feel like we're going to know what you're going to say here, but we always have to ask the question. It's tradition. So, Desi, we watched Loki season 2. We talked about it, but would you recommend season 2?
Yes, I would. I think it's great. I think that, a lot of times shows, they come out and they're fantastic, and then season 2 happens and it kind of diminishes season 1. And, it kind of, but not with Loki. Honestly, season 2, just as good as season 1. I loved it. I love how seasons 1 and 2 come full circle, glorious purpose. In case you didn't know what an Ouroboros was, it is like a full circle. So I loved it. I thought it was great. I think that this is what Disney Plus shows should aspire to be. I don't think that you need a huge budget. I think you need to focus on character development. I think that is what's important. That's what gets me into Loki, is I care about him as a character.
Gotcha. Well, okay, so I agree. I would definitely recommend this, but you obviously have to watch season 1. There's 6 episodes in season 1, 6 episodes of season 2. I think that you could watch Loki without the rest of the MCU. Honestly, I feel like you could, but it wasn't what I expected it to be. That's why I asked you that question. I was like, what did you think was going to happen? I expected season 1 to be the introduction to what we saw with Kang, and season 2 to kind of continue that. I didn't expect it to be the end of Loki's journey, but I think it was a great journey that he went on. So I think that if you watch season 1, you got to watch season 2. They are a match set. I can't believe how many people that I saw just freaking out about how great this was, and this is what Marvel should have been. And Marvel's been disappointing between Secret Invasion and Quantum Mania. I definitely thought Guardians was a step back in the right direction. I liked the Marvels. I'm sure not everybody liked it, but I liked the Marvels. I thought it was a fun movie. So I can't wait to see what comes next, and I have high hopes. But some of the stuff that's ahead of us, I'm not as excited about as the stuff that's been happening. Honestly, for me, the thing I'm most excited about is what's going to happen in Spider-Man 4. That's what I'm excited about, and I don't even know when we're going to see that at this point. But Tom Holland as Spider-Man is to me as Tom Hiddleston Loki is to you. I think he's great. I would love to see them do something great with that, and there's a lot of different opportunities, but I think it's going to be a while before we see that. So I hope they continue to do good stuff and they don't give up on it, because they've laid out so many characters for us. Werewolf by Night introduced characters that we haven't seen yet. Moon Knight put together such a great opportunity for them in the MCU for him to show up somewhere. The Eternals introduced way too many characters. At the end of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, we're meeting another character. And so, I mean, there's so many out there that we haven't seen the completion of this yet. I would hate for them to just not complete these stories or continue these stories. So I hope that they do. But let us know in the comments what you thought about Loki Season 2. Thank you guys for watching. Desi, thanks for putting up with us tonight. I appreciate it. And for being here with glorious purpose.
That's right.
I took it away from you again. Sorry. You guys have a great week, and we will see you next time.